My parents guilt-tripped me into a simple backyard ceremony. But when I found out they paid for my sister's lavish wedding, I decided to flip the script. I never thought my wedding would destroy my family. Not for its excess or controversy. Quite opposite. My gracious parents insisted on a simple, quiet, humble affair. No venue, photographer, or big guest list. Just a homemade arch in my parents' backyard and a Costco shake if we were fancy. I reluctantly agreed because I've always maintained peace. The nodding, low-demanding one. Something snapped inside me when I learned what they did for my sister. This was the first time I stopped being the easy child. My name's Ethan. I'm 32 and the firstborn to, we're doing our best parenting. The type you know. Who gets off-brand shoes while your younger sibling has Nike in 4 colors by 10, the one who is praised for being mature when it meant doing everything alone. That doesn't mean my childhood was bad. My parents weren't evil. But there was always a hint of favoritism. One current was named Chloe. Younger sister Chloe is 2 years younger. Since I can remember, my parents have revolved around her. For Chloe, every school play, birthday party, and scraped knee was a production. She was always sensitive, needed more attention, and had meltdowns while I was told to be strong and understand she doesn't mean it. And I did. I played the role they gave me, smiled, got good grades, worked part-time jobs to buy my own car, and put myself through college. When I got engaged to Sophia after 6 years together, I thought it might be the last time they celebrated me. They didn't. My engagement to Sophia wasn't grand. I proposed on a weekend hike with her with a ring I'd saved for over a year. She wept. I wept. It was perfect. My parents weren't happy when we told them. Concern. My mom said, "Weddings are expensive," with passive-aggressive worry. "You're not thinking of doing something big, are you?" My dad said earnestly. Sophia glanced at me. "Money's tight, Ty. Maybe think about something low-key. Backyard, family only. Keep it humble, you know." I swallowed my disappointment and nodded. We'd been researching affordable venues and photographers to keep things affordable while still having a special day. "Yeah," I said, "we can figure something out." Not to pressure them. I knew they were broke, but I foolishly assumed they'd help out occasionally. They didn't. Whenever I mentioned a wedding detail in the following weeks, they had a reason to reject it. "We can get flowers at Costco, speaker and playlist for music. No DJ needed. Stand-up seating, I doubt it'll last." Every conversation was a negotiation where we were unreasonable for wanting more than a potluck under their string lights. The worst part was the tone. It implied we were selfish and that asking for anything beyond paper plates and backyard folding chairs was burdensome. Sophia initially tried to understand. She didn't grow up with guilt tripping, so I could tell it confused her. She offered compromises, DIY options, and fun, but was dismissed every time. My mom would say, "You're not one of those brides who needs everything perfect, right?" Half laughing but with that edge. Sophia smiled politely, but her enthusiasm waned. In the early stages, asking my mom to borrow the backyard to confirm was the final straw. She blinks like it's a silly question. "Of course, that's the whole idea, right? We're saving you the cost of a venue," she added. "But we won't be paying for any cleanup or catering. You'll have to handle all that. We're just offering the space." People say your wedding should be about you, but mine was starting to feel like a handout. I assured myself we'd make it ours. That love counted. Something kept pulling me. A strange gut feeling I couldn't shake. A feeling of silence. That feeling persisted, especially after Chloe's engagement. It happened 4 months after our announcement. On a yacht during a weekend trip to the coast, Chloe's boyfriend Jack, a nice but spineless guy, proposed. They had Instagram photos, champagne toasts, and a highlight reel before leaving the boat. Mom reposted all photos. Dad commented on them all with heart emojis. Sophia and I watched from our apartment on our second-hand couch, drinking wine from mismatched glasses. Sophia remained quiet. I quieted. When we called to congratulate Chloe, she was ecstatic. "We're thinking of doing something really magical," said. "Like a vineyard or something rustic but elegant, you know?" I nodded, trying to cheer her up. We weren't asked about plans. She never inquired about our well-being. Next time I saw my parents, they buzzed. "Chloe's venue is so beautiful," my mom said. "And they found this photographer with the most amazing portfolio. Expensive, but totally worth it." I saw. "Wait, you've seen the venue?" "Oh, we went with them last week. She said they needed help with the deposit, but it's going to be stunning. A real fairy tale." "Help with the deposit?" I said nothing. "Yes," I nodded. Let rest. I didn't want to assume. However, Sophia's mother, who lives 2 states away, called the following week to offer assistance. Her regret was her inability to do more. Sophia, bless her, went into tears. My mind raced as I stared at the ceiling that night. It didn't make sense. My digging began quietly and casually. A few texts and conversations led to what made me queasy. My parents helped with more than Chloe's deposit. They paid for most things: catering, photographer, live band, venue, custom invitations. Finally, they gave Chloe and Jack a 2-week Italian honeymoon package. $22,000 for first-class flights, boutique hotels, private tours. That was all. I stared at the email number. Not supposed to see. She accidentally CC'd me on a chain with her travel agent. My hands shook. They said they couldn't afford a photographer, chairs, or a simple venue. They pressure us into having our wedding in their backyard with a Bluetooth speaker and deli meat folding table. Now they were sponsoring Chloe's Italian fantasy like a royal wedding. I didn't cry. No screaming. I didn't yell at them. I sat in the dark, feeling something cold and sharp inside me. I stopped being the good son. Smiled instead of confronting them. I nodded. I let them think the backyard wedding continued. I even asked for help choosing a modest ceremony dress shirt. I planned another event while they planned Chloe's Cinderella ball. No one expected this. Before that, you must know how far they went to humiliate me. It got worse. Much worse. Wish I could say I confronted them immediately. That I confronted them, demanded answers, and reclaimed my dignity in righteous rage. But I didn't. Played along. I was raised this way. Not to disrupt. Do not look up. Maintain peace. Maintain a smile. And I did. The intimate backyard setup tablecloth color texts made me smile for weeks. Nodded as my mom sent me clearance fairy light photos. Heard my dad complain about the cost of mulch for their garden, where we were supposed to get married. They treated us like another landscaping task. Chloe's wedding posts flew across social media, featuring gold foil invitations, bridesmaid proposal boxes with luxury skincare, and a champagne brunch in a limo dress shopping trip. My parents smiled, held dress bags, and toasting with champagne flutes in every photo like they were in a Hallmark movie. I pretended throughout. Pretending ignorance. I pretended gratitude. I pretended I wasn't falling apart. Sophia noticed. Of course she did. After another passive-aggressive call from my mom about keeping expectations low, she closed her laptop mid-search for affordable wedding alternatives and asked, "Ethan, why are we doing this?" I didn't know. No good anyway. I couldn't surrender. Not yet. Not until I saw how deep the rabbit hole went. It happened at Chloe's bridal shower. Sophia and I weren't invited up front. The mom said it was for her close friends and Chloe wanted it to be intimate. I advised Sophia not to take it personally. This was probably better, I said. Reduced awkwardness and tension. Though she nodded, I could tell it hurt. Sophia doesn't overact. She's considerate and quiet. She doesn't ask much, but being excluded hurt. I noticed she didn't look up when passing Chloe's latest Instagram post. My mom front and center, holding a sign that read, "Mother of the Bride." Then, as if the universe wanted to emphasize, a boomerang of matching silk robes and custom cocktails with a dozen smiling women. The next day, Chloe texted. Not to apologize or include us, just to brag. "Shower was amazing," she said. "Mom and Dad went all out. You wouldn't believe the cake. Had this edible gold stuff on it. Legit." I stared at the message for a minute before taking it down. I remained silent. I couldn't. Not without saying something wrong. However, Sophia's sister Lily called 3 days later to say she had been at the same venue for a friend's baby sprinkle the day before. "Did you know your future in-laws booked out the entire rooftop space for Chloe's shower?" said. "It was insane. I saw photos. Looked like a mini wedding. DJ." My chest cracked. I was told music wasn't funded. That a Bluetooth speaker would work. That chairs were unnecessary. People can stand? They spent thousands on a bridal shower. I started documenting everything then. I wasn't sure what to do with it. Just needed a record. When my parents talked about Chloe's wedding plans, I started saving texts, screenshots, email confirmations, budget spreadsheets, and voice memos, unaware that they were casually admitting to spending money on her that they didn't have for me. It was petty, but it was the first time I had real proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined the favoritism, and that I wasn't being dramatic, as my mom always claimed when I brought up the double standard. Dinner with family followed. I thought my parents invited us over to finalize our backyard wedding. Sophia hesitated. Are we seriously going to sit there and pretend this is okay? Said. I agreed because I needed to finish. I kept gathering evidence because I still wanted to believe there might be an explanation, accountability, or apology. Instead, I was insulted. As usual, dinner began awkwardly. Small talk, food compliments, my mom talking too much, my dad sipping wine like he couldn't wait to leave. Eventually we talked about my wedding, or what was left of it. So my mom folded her napkin neatly. Have you decided what kind of plasticware you want? We found some gold-rimmed plates at Dollar Tree. They're actually really elegant, Sophia said. Plasticware? Well, we assumed you wouldn't want to rent china or anything. It's just a backyard ceremony. I began and stopped speaking. You said you'd help with rentals. She tilted her head. Sophia said, we'd host. That's already a big expense, Ty. Staring at her lap. Her hands clenched. Dad joined in. I erred by mentioning Chloe. Neither aggressive nor accusatory, just gentle. A test. I just find it kind of confusing, I add. That Chloe's shower had a band and catering and custom signs, but we can't even have chairs without it being a problem? The room quieted. My mom froze wine mid-sips. Well, she said slowly. Chloe's wedding is different. How? She's the bride. It's more traditional. Sophia's also a bride. Mom rolled her eyes. It's not a competition, Ethan. Honestly, I hate how everything has to be tit for tat with you. Sophia sighed. She had sparkling eyes. We're not trying to compete, we just want to be treated fairly. Dad scoffed. Chloe didn't ask for a backyard wedding. I realized it wasn't about money. The issue was value. They thought Chloe deserved more. Real bride Chloe deserved praise. The dinner ended soon after. Sophia left without saying goodbye. I hardly thanked for dinner before leaving. We drove home silently. First time since we got engaged, I saw a scary crack in Sophia. This doesn't feel like a wedding, she whispered. It feels like charity. I decided that night. We weren't married in the backyard. We wouldn't stand under a rusted garden arch while my parents sat in lawn chairs and pretended to help us. While they handed out Dollar Tree plates and reminded us of our humility, we would smile. No, we'd marry, but not on their terms. I didn't tell them because I wanted them to feel in charge. I wanted them to think they were in charge. I wanted them to keep talking, bragging, and showing their favoritism. The final betrayal arrived in my inbox a week before our backyard ceremony. The email was from Chloe. Quick favor. I expected another brag or a last-minute RSVP question and clicked it. I saw this instead. Hey big bro. So, we need a little help. Jack's cousin just dropped out of the groomsmen lineup, and I was wondering if maybe Sophia could sit this one out and let Jack's buddy, the hot one from New York, LOL, walk with your friend Oliver instead. He already has a suit, and it'll look better in photos. Promise it won't be weird. Let me know. Kiss, Luke. Allow her to skip her wedding. I couldn't breathe. Not just the audacity. It was casual cruelty. She treated Sophia like an extra, a placeholder, an obstacle to her photos, as if our wedding wasn't real and we were just a speed bump on her road to wifehood and Instagram fame. I remained silent. No call. Sophia didn't get the email. I stared at it for hours. This was when the plan came together. Not just change the venue. No way was I reversing our wedding. I would give them joy, dignity, and celebration in a way that was so obvious they couldn't deny it. The best revenge needed an audience, so I had to let the backyard wedding burn longer. My mom's phone call started the next chapter, and what she said was the final nail in the coffin. I don't remember sleeping that night. Sitting in bed, I stared at the ceiling. Sophia curled up beside me, quiet. My phone was face down on the nightstand. I still remember Chloe's email like a branding iron. Let her sit this one out. Like Sophia was sidelined in our wedding her dress rehearsal. That phrase festered my ribs. Next morning, I called in sick. Not physically sick, but hollow and disoriented, like a wave that hadn't receded yet. Sophia kissed and glanced worriedly before leaving for work, but she didn't press. She sensed my need for space. Much of that day was spent walking. Moving through neighborhoods I hadn't seen in years, past empty baseball fields and forgotten parks, with no destination or plan. It was strangely comforting to be silent. I needed thought. Maybe I needed to stop thinking because all my thoughts went in one direction. How did I allow this? How could I tolerate this treatment? I wore my peacekeeper badge proudly for years. Like being agreeable meant strong. But sitting on a bench by a duck pond that smelled like wet leaves and regret, I finally asked myself a question I'd avoided for decades. What did being a peacekeeper get me? No respect, no support, no seat at the important table. Each birthday I'd quietly ignored because Chloe needed more attention that year came to mind. Every family dinner where I hid my opinions because it wasn't time. I didn't brag about every job offer. To avoid overshadowing her, I downplayed every accomplishment. At the edge of my most important day as an adult, I was again asked to shrink, minimize, and make room for her. I confessed to Sophia that night. We split a pint of Rocky Road on the floor of our living room while the TV played a show we didn't like. I opened the email on my laptop. Her face fell as she read. "She wants me to sit out of our wedding," I said. Sophia looked up at me, eyes wide, whispering, "Ethan, this is insane." I didn't argue. For once, I didn't excuse them. I opened a spreadsheet I'd been working on quietly in my spare time. Venues, food trucks, affordable photographers, freelance DJs, and a modest but workable budget were included. Sophia glanced at the screen. "You've been planning this?" "Yeah." I kept my voice steady. "Because I don't want them anywhere near our real wedding." Suddenly something changed. She put down the ice cream and hugged me. The first time in weeks or months I felt seen, not just tolerated or included out of obligation. Seen. From that night on, fall became rise. We secretly worked. Every night after work and weekend, we worked on the details. A last-minute cancellation at a small vineyard an hour from the city gave us one slot. The owners, an older couple semi-retired, offered us a ridiculous discount after hearing our sanitized story. Sophia's cousin, a side gig photographer, offered to shoot the whole thing for half his usual rate. The officiant was our old college friend Naomi, and my co-workers gave us a handmade arch that one built in his garage because, "You've been carrying everyone else on your back for years. Let us carry something for you." The pace was slow. It was quiet. Though built on betrayal, it was ours. I never felt so alive. Schedule conflicts, budget cuts, and the vineyard's generator failure that week made us think we'd lost the slot were all setbacks. Despite everything, we continued. Though there was plenty of love, every moment was driven by something sharper, a determination to change the narrative. Sophia taped a pink cardstock checklist to our fridge. Every box we checked felt like a small rebellion. Create guest list, buy rings, write vows. No family but real. Invitations, sound system rental. We invited friends who had seen us grow, mentors who had guided us, and colleagues who supported us. No unknown plus ones. No duties, just love. I continued to imagine the backyard wedding. Parental texts about potluck signups continued. My mom sent me a blurry Pinterest photo of a donut cake. My dad worried about the sprinkler system disrupting the ceremony. I told them I'd investigate and everything was fine. Instead of being cruel, I smiled through every lie because I knew they didn't deserve to ruin the real version. Pressure increased as the date approached. My mom planned a family unity candle. Chloe demanded a brief speech. Nothing major, promise. She even asked if I could include Jack's nephew in the ceremony to make it feel like a family. Nodded, took notes, promised to return. Sophia bought thrift store decorations and hand-painted signs. Craft paper, string lights, and half-glued centerpieces wreaked havoc in our kitchen. We were exhausted and glowing. My mom called a week before the real wedding, 3 days before the fake one. My phone buzzed as I left the grocery store. Without thinking, I replied. "Ethan," she said. "We have a problem." I stopped beside my car. "What kind of problem?" "I was talking to Chloe and she mentioned something odd. She said she saw a Facebook post from one of Sophia's coworkers about a wedding at a vineyard next week, and it had your name tagged in it." My stomach dropped slightly. I told everyone to be quiet, but they're excited. "Posts occur." I spoke quietly. "That's weird. Probably just a mix-up." "Is it?" she asked, focusing. "Because Chloe said the vineyard was the one she toured last year. The one she wanted before she settled for the winery downtown. Are you two planning something you haven't told us about?" I paused. Enough to make her wiggle. "Of course not," I concluded. "Why would we do that?" There was silence. A suspicious hum. "Okay," she confirmed. "It would be extremely hurtful if something like that were happening behind our backs." "Wouldn't want to hurt anyone," I said, hanging up before she could continue. Sophia and I wrote our vows that night. We sat on our balcony with string lights above us and the city murmuring below. She read hers first, crying, cracking on the part about building something no one could take away. I didn't cry when it was my turn. But I felt a stillness and peace I hadn't felt in years. Choosing your own story felt like this. My dad texted me a backyard photo 2 days later, the night before the fake wedding. The arch tilted. The chairs clashed. A wind-blown plastic tablecloth covered a folding table. Under it, a grocery store bakery's single-tier cake in a plastic box. "Almost ready for your big day," he wrote. I stared at the image for a long time, not angry or sad, but relieved that I no longer needed their love. Something better was waiting for me one day away. I packed my suit, but they didn't know. Sophia's dress hung at the vineyard. Another friend's free camera crew was on site checking angles and lighting. They never hosted the wedding they thought they would. However, the one we built in its place was quietly, powerfully unfolding without them. They'd soon discover how far I'd gone to redeem myself. After the vows, the first dance, and the sun setting below the vineyard hills, I had one last surprise they would never forget. I woke up before sunrise on the fake wedding day, from the electric tension of knowing that every moment from now on was part of the setup, not nerves or excitement. That today wasn't wedding day. It was Act 1. Mom texted me while the sun was barely rising. "Happy wedding day. Can't believe it's finally here. We're setting everything up. Don't be late." She posted a photo of Chloe in workout clothes holding a stapler and an iced coffee next to the arch, pretending to help. Folding chairs were out. A breeze blew Dollar Tree banners. Half-mowed grass appeared. I got the afterthought wedding they always thought I deserved. They didn't know that the real wedding was already underway 3 hours north in a secluded vineyard between two gentle hills. Sophia and I drove up the night before to pretend to be apart. Sophia checked into the vineyard's small guest house while I stayed with our friend Naomi and her wife. We wanted airtightness. No digital footprints, suspicious activity, or countdown. It had to unfold like a magic trick. Now you see? Now not. I turned off my phone after reading the text. After that, I was unreachable. Everything worked magically at the vineyard. Not storybook-like, but built on sweat, trust, and showing up when it counts. Sophia's cousin Michael checked light angles with his camera lens. Naomi reviewed her script under the arbor our friend Daniel stained and carved. Sophia and I hand-tied ribbon sashes on sturdy whitewood chairs in neat rows. Wildflowers, mason jars, hand-lettered signs, and the food truck we hired to serve dinner smelled like fresh-baked bread. It wasn't lavish, but ours. All attendees wanted to be there. Nobody was guilty. No modesty. Don't pretend modesty hides contempt. Just joy. Absolute joy. I was in the dressing room putting on my tailored navy suit, which I'd saved for over a year. Naomi peered in. "You ready to nuke some bridges?" She grinned. I grinned. "No, I'm ready to walk away from the ashes." The ceremony wasn't live-streamed. Not the point. We recorded it. Michael's drone provides high-quality aerial footage. He wanted to do it as a gift, and we knew what that footage would become. Wedding began at noon. During Sophia's wedding to a soft-string rendition of "Can't Help Falling in Love," my mom was pacing her backyard, texting furiously at 12:01. Chloe stormed around her patio at 12:15, demanding answers from empty chairs while we exchanged vows under a sunlit canopy. By 12:30, when Naomi declared us husband and wife and Sophia kissed me with tears in her eyes, I imagined my dad scratching his head and saying, "Well, maybe they got lost." It was nearly poetic. Everything was ready except us. We left. I turned my phone back on after the ceremony while guests mingled and the food truck heated up its griddle. Imagine opening a dam. 9 voicemails, 52 missed messages. 9 from my mom, 3 from my dad, 1 from Chloe saying, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I didn't respond. I requested a favor from Michael. "Can you pull together a short teaser cut?" I asked. Like 1 minute. Quick, emotional, but clean. I wanted to feel like a movie trailer. He grinned and started. I loved that about our group. No lengthy explanations were needed. The assignment was understood. He had it when the reception reached full swing. Perfect teaser. Beginning with a drone shot of the vineyard in golden sunlight, Sophia walks through the vines in her dress, cutting to our vows. "I choose you every time." We kiss. Wide shot of everyone clapping, laughing, music, and dancing under lights to a soft instrumental score that built to wait. Elegant. Intimate. Beautiful. Not to Instagram or Facebook. I watched it once and uploaded it. I uploaded it privately to YouTube. A video called, "To Those Who Said We Couldn't Afford Joy," no tags, no description, no fanfare. I copied the link and sent it to my mom, dad, Chloe, our extended family group chat, and every RSVP'er. Yes. To the backyard wedding. No caption, just link. The reactions could wait, so I turned off my phone again. I wouldn't let them ruin our night. Under lanterns we danced, toasted, and walked slowly through the vineyard. Sophia's dad's speech made people laugh and cry. Naomi read a book quote we both liked. Our guests signed our guest book with names, love letters, inside jokes, and drawings. While the DJ played our song and Sophia pulled me close, I whispered, "Can you believe we did this?" She looked up at me, beaming. I can now. The fallout hit me the next morning. I used my phone for breakfast. Messages kept coming. Some confused, some furious, some stunned into silence. But none dared say what I thought they would. The video proved my cruelty, so no one accused me. Differences were evident. You felt it. The point was that it's not the climax because the teaser was only part 1. The worst was yet to come. Michael edited the entire video. Every moment of this 20-minute masterpiece is cinematically clear. It would end with something special. A speech. My reception gift. We stood with Sophia and our friends and chosen family, glass in hand. The one where I thanked everyone who helped us build this from scratch. I told the truth without bitterness or rage. I said, sometimes the people who say they love you the most are the same ones who clip your wings in the name of humility. But love that demands silence and smallness isn't love. This is control. We won't let anyone control our joy celebrations. They had no idea that speech would go viral. Not after seeing the teaser. Not when they called and left nice-sounding but sour voicemails. Not after Chloe posted a black and white story saying, "Some people are just ungrateful." I didn't respond either because I wasn't done. Final act was coming. When it hit, they felt everything we felt, twice as hard. I didn't intend virality. I wanted to marry. Making a point was my goal. People notice when you do both with grace, clarity, and receipts. Full wedding video dropped 3 days later. Michael frantically edited and sent me the final cut with the subject line, "Ready to set the internet on fire." It started with a wide vineyard sunset shot. Soft focus guests arriving. Sophia adjusting her veil in the mirror, little trembling in her fingers. Fixing my tie. Naomi shoulder clapping. Slow build, steady beat. Just enough trimming was done to keep the ceremony flowing. But every word, glance and tear remained. Our honest vows. Sophia cracked, "You are my home no matter the house." I shook. I spent years shrinking so others could shine. You taught me that love doesn't ask you to be smaller. The reception followed. Dancing, laughing, glass clinking, and wine-dark hills lit up. Sophia twirling barefoot in grass. Dad hugging me, whispering, "Thank you for loving her the way she deserves." Naomi toasting with 3 inside jokes and a Princess Bride quote. And finally, the speech. I held my glass like a lifeline under the arbor, the stars bright above us. I want to thank all of you for being here, I say. Not just physically, but truly present. Every person here chose us, not out of obligation, guilt, or expectation, but because they wanted to. That matters more than I can say. Some nodded. Some crying. There's something that happens when you're the easy child, I said. You get good at making things easier for everyone else. You learn to smile through disappointment, to shrink your joy, to make room for someone else's ego. You become the background character in your own story. End. But then something changes. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's finally being believed. Maybe it's just enough. And one day, you decide that you're done making yourself small. I let that linger. I won't name names, I said calmly. But this wasn't the wedding I was supposed to have. I was supposed to stand in a backyard next to a plastic table covered in potato salad, surrounded by people who thought I should be grateful for the bare minimum. I was supposed to stay quiet, be humble, be cheap, be invisible, the crowd murmured. I raised my glass to building your own table and inviting people who know how to sit at it. Applause. Some stand. Sophia weeping. I kissed her forehead. Just like that, the video went black. They tried to cancel the wedding. A tale of love, family, and self-determination. Toxic family, golden child, wedding, emotional speech, family drama, standing up for yourself, backyard wedding lie, viral wedding video. It reached 5,000 views in 24 hours. Over 1 million by week's end. The comment section became a digital bonfire every hour. I don't know you, but I'm crying. This is how you take your power back. Your parents should be ashamed. You did everything with class. Can't believe they tried to gaslight you out of your own wedding. The oldest child who always had to smile signed, "Glad you made it yours." This hit me in the gut. The speech. I stood and clapped at my desk. Bravo, someone put this in a movie, please. It was featured in wedding blogs, reaction TikToks, and a BuzzFeed roundup of 10 weddings that rejected toxic families. I ignored media hype. I didn't value fame. I quietly watched as the people who always made me feel small realized the world wasn't on their side. Fallout started with a group chat explosion. My mother messaged first. "You made us look like monsters. You humiliated this family. How could you do this to us?" I said. My dad called me 3 times in an hour. I sent everyone to voicemail. His voice went from calm to bitter to desperate. "Ethan, this is getting out of hand. You need to take the video down. Your mother hasn't slept. Chloe's furious. People are asking questions. Do you really want to burn every bridge over this?" "Yes. Yes, I did," Chloe DM'd. She didn't appear subtle. "You manipulative little snake, you're jealous. You've always been jealous. Just because you couldn't afford a real wedding doesn't mean you get to trash mine." I studied the message. I debated responding. Considering sending her the receipts, spreadsheets of the money our parents spent on her events while saying they were broke. I didn't because her rage proved it. My revenge went beyond a viral video. Next came the real blow. Sophia and I wrote thank you notes to everyone who attended our real wedding. Personalized, considerate. Each had a photo of that day frozen in time. She twirled barefoot under the arbor. Our first dance. She wiped her eyes. Memory. We didn't write my parents. We sent them something else. Wedding video on DVD. White envelope. Old school. No return address, just a post-it note saying, "Since you missed it, Chloe got a copy too." We never heard back. My aunt, my dad's sister, who'd always been kind to me, called a week later. She reported my parents' damage control. That they told everyone they would help, but Sophia and I wanted to do it alone. They were surprised by our decision. "They're trying to rewrite it," she said. "Thanks, but no one's buying it. Everyone saw the video." She paused. "I'm proud of you." That meant everything. Sophia and I settled into married life with peace I didn't expect. No drama, guilt, or fallout in our home, just the warm, steady hum of something we built from scratch. Not everyone was excluded, not all at once. We let things fade. No more Sunday dinners. No more group texts. We declined Chloe's wedding 2 months later, complete with an Italy honeymoon and luxury photographer. That weekend we hiked in the mountains off the grid. We weren't bitter when the photos of the custom flower wall, glass dance floor, and Chloe's third dress change circulated. We felt nothing because we won our wedding. It went beyond viral. It symbolized the quiet, thunderous reminder that love and joy don't need permission. People who use tradition to hide mistreatment don't deserve your silence. You can make others feel big without shrinking. Choose your ending. Sometimes the best revenge is living a life so full of love they can't rewrite the story without you. You've stopped reading theirs. Dad kicked me in the ribs while my kids watched and said, "You're nothing." But my lawyer filmed everything and made sure he faced the consequences. He yelled, "You both don't deserve to breathe the same air as her." He kicked me again while I was on the ground. Mom said, "How dare you waste money on that kid?" Sister grinned. "Should have given it to me like you were supposed to." Uncle nodded. Finally, someone is educating her about family first. My daughter was scared and screaming in the corner while her grandfather beat her mother. Dad pulled my hair and banged my head against the floor, yelling, "Next time you'll listen." He then took the toy from my daughter and dumped it in the trash. I simply stood up slowly, blood streaming down my face, and began their demise. The linoleum felt cool on my cheek. Blood flowed beneath my nose, warm and metallic. Ava's screams rang from behind the kitchen table, where she had forced herself into a corner and clutched her knees. Mason stood paused outside the doorway, the empty toy box still in his small hands, a confused expression on his 8-year-old face. My father's boot had hit my ribs twice. The second kick came after I had already fallen, and I automatically curled to cover my tummy. His dress shoes were made of fine Italian leather and had been polished to a mirror brilliance. My sister Sophia bought them for him for his birthday last month, using money from Dad and Mom's joint account, which I later found. Sophia's initial flat deposit came from the same account where my childhood college fund had suddenly disappeared. "You both don't deserve to breathe the same air as her." Dad's voice echoed off the walls of my own kitchen. My kitchen in my house, where I'd invited them for Sunday dinner after Mom called screaming about how the family was falling apart. Mom stood behind the refrigerator, arms crossed over her cream cardigan, lips pursed in the grimace I'd seen every time I disappointed her. How dare you waste money on that kid? Sophia needed the money for salon equipment. The toy had cost $45. Mason had begged for that specific action figure for 3 months. Since seeing it at a friend's birthday party, he's done additional tasks without being asked, practiced his spelling words every night, and even helped Ava clean her bedroom. The joy on his face when I surprised him with it yesterday was well worth the money. Sophia leaned against my counter, studying her manicured nails with disinterest. Should have given it to me like you were supposed to. I told you last week I needed $300 for the new styling chairs. She hadn't asked for them. She demanded via text message, which arrived while I was attending a budget meeting at work. Need $300 by Friday, chairs going on sale. No, please. There's no explanation beyond the chairs. There was no acknowledgement that I had my own bills, children, and life. Uncle Frank appeared in the living room doorway, still holding the beer I had served him 20 minutes earlier. He nodded slowly, his thick neck creased. Finally, someone teaching her about family first. Your sister's always been too selfish. The irony of Frank calling anyone selfish would have been laughable if my vision hadn't been swimming. If Ava weren't hyperventilating in the corner. If Mason wasn't staring at his grandfather with a look that would probably take years of therapy to understand. Dad's hand tangled in my hair. He yanked up and my scalp screamed in protest. The floor rushed away, then returned forcefully as he slammed my face down. Something in my nose crunched. Fresh blood poured hot and thick. Next time you'll listen. Ava's screaming intensified. Through clouded vision, I watched Dad march toward her corner. She scrambled backward, but there was nowhere to go. He reached behind her and grabbed the action figure Mason had placed on the chair, still in its package. Mason had wanted to keep it spotless, had carefully set it on his shelf before coming down for dinner. Dad's big fingers tore through the cardboard and plastic. He walked to the trash can and threw the toy deep into the rubbish, mashing it down amid the supper scraps and dirty paper towels. Mason made a sound like a wounded animal. The room tilted as I pushed myself up. My hands left bloody tracks on the white tile. Every breath felt like knives in my ribs. Something was obviously broken or fractured. My face throbbed in tune with my pulse, yet my thinking had become totally clear. I stood slowly, deliberately. Blood poured down my chin and trickled onto my blouse. Mom usually criticized when I looked sloppy, so I meticulously ironed it this morning. Everyone looked at me, waiting for tears, presumably for apologies, for me to promise to be better, to prioritize Sophia, to remember my place in the family hierarchy. I grinned instead. The blood on my teeth looked ugly, as Mom's face turned pale. Gab. Despite the coppery taste in my mouth, my voice remained steady. What did you say? Dad's face reeled, a familiar precursor to another outburst. Sophia laughed sharply and cruelly. Get out of my house. Oh, now she's got a backbone. A little late for that, don't you think? I took out my phone from my pocket. My hands remained steady. Strange considering the circumstances. I launched the security software, thanked God for facial recognition unlock and turned the screen toward them. See that camera? The one mounted above the cabinets? It's been recording since you arrived. Every word. Every kick. Everything. There was no more laughter. Dad's color changed from red to grayish. Uncle Frank carefully laid his beer down, his attention drawn to the floor. That's illegal. Mom's voice went up an octave. You can't record people without permission. Actually, in this state, I can. It's my home. One-party consent. I'm the party who consented. I looked this up 6 months ago after the last family dinner when Dad had shoved me into the wall for contradicting him about politics. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave now and you're never coming back. Sophia was grumbling. Oh please, you've made empty threats before. If any of you contact me again and pressing charges, assault and battery, child endangerment for traumatizing my kids. The video is already backed up to the cloud and my lawyer will have a copy by tomorrow morning. Your lawyer. Dad cracked a laugh. You don't have a lawyer. I consulted with one 3 weeks ago. When you showed up to my workplace to borrow money from my handbag while I was in meetings, I realized I needed legal help. Tomorrow, I will formally retain her and this video will be the first piece of proof she submits. My office's security footage also captured your larceny. By the way, My supervisor was really concerned about family members entering the building under false pretenses. That had occurred. Dad had sweet-talked the receptionist, said he was bringing me lunch, and then rifled through my desk while I was in a conference room. He had snatched $120 and my emergency credit card. I reported the card as stolen, but the $120 had already been deducted. Watching his face comprehend the reality of proof, consequences, and a version of me he didn't recognize filled a dark and hungry feeling in my chest. "You're ungrateful," Mom started. "Get out before I call the cops and have you arrested." I held out the phone, my finger hovering over 911. They left. Dad's Italian shoes creaked on my floor. Mom grasped her pocketbook as a protection. Sophia's sneer had finally faded, replaced by what could have been genuine concern. Uncle Frank walked away without meeting my gaze. The door closed behind them. I turned on the deadbolt and the chain and ensured that they were both secure. Then I slid down the door and sat on the floor, still clutching the phone in my bleeding hand. Ava ran up to me. Mason followed. They slammed into me, despite the pain in my ribs, and I threw my arms around each of them, holding them while they screamed. I mumbled, "I'm sorry," into Ava's hair. "I'm sorry you saw that. Grandpa hurt you." Mason's voice was small and bewildered. "Why did Grandpa hurt you?" How does one explain generational violence to an 8-year-old? How would you describe being the scapegoat in a family that required someone to blame, steal from, or knock down so that everyone else could feel superior? Because I did not do what he desired. But that will never happen again. I drew back and glanced at both of their faces. Nobody is ever going to hurt Mommy in front of you again. Nobody is ever going to hurt you. We're safe now. Ava gently touched my cheek, her fingertips turning red. "You're bleeding a lot." "I know, baby. We're going to the hospital." The emergency department doctor, a fatigued woman in her 50s, had plainly witnessed domestic violence before. She inspected my ribs with careful efficiency, took an X-ray of my face, and cleansed the incisions. 2 fractured ribs, a broken nose, and a concussion. She gave me the numbers for a women's shelter, domestic violence resources, and a social worker. "It was my father," I replied, feeling fatigued. "Not my husband." Her expression did not change. "Doesn't matter who hits you, the resources are the same." She was correct. I grabbed all of the papers, carefully folded them, and placed them in the folder I was creating in my head. Evidence, documentation, and proof. Ryan greeted us at the hospital. My spouse had gone out of town for work. Wasn't meant to return until Wednesday. He entered into the exam room, took one glance at my face and turned white. "Who?" A single word, a low voice, a threatening tone. "My family, but I've got it handled." "Handled how?" I said. "The video, the lawyer I'd hired, and the strategy I'd been devising for months. Ever since Dad slapped me at Christmas for serving turkey instead of ham." At the age of 9, Ava's mother informed her that she was becoming overweight and needed to diet. Sophia took and pawned my grandmother's necklace from my jewelry box, stating she needed the money more than I needed sentimental crap. Ryan listened. His jaw tightened with each detail, but he did not interject. When I finished, he nodded once. "What do you need from me?" "Take the kids home, I have calls to make." Christine Walsh was the lawyer's name. She specialized in family law and restraining orders and was highly recommended by a co-worker who had escaped an abusive marriage. I'd met with her once to discuss possibilities when I was worried I was overreacting. Perhaps this was simply how families were. Perhaps I needed to work more to maintain the calm. She answered the second ring, despite the fact that it was nearly midnight. I texted her an hour ago, using Ryan's phone. The doctor's orders meant no screens for me, but this was too crucial. Emergency. Client from consultation 3 weeks ago. Have video evidence of assault. Father attacked me in my home. Tell me everything I did. She listened without interrupting, asking pointed questions about the video quality, whether their faces were visible, and whether the audio was clear. Yes to everything. The camera I had placed was top of the line, disguised in a decorative piece above the cabinets that resembled a plant planter. Nobody had noticed it. "Send me the video tonight. I'll review it and file for an emergency restraining order first thing Tuesday morning. We'll also press charges if you want to go that route. I want them to face consequences, real ones, then they will. With video evidence this clear, the DA will likely prosecute. Your father could face serious jail time for assault. Your mother for contributing to the delinquency of a minor since she encouraged it in front of your children." The jargon of the law flooded me. I focused on the key parts: restraining orders, prosecution, and repercussions. Things my family had never experienced before, since I had always backed down. Always apologized. Always attempted to smooth things over. "There's something else," I explained. "Financial abuse, years of it. Stolen money, forced loans I couldn't refuse, my college fund that disappeared. Can we do anything about that?" "Possibly. Do you have documentation?" "I've been collecting it for 8 months. Bank statements showing the withdrawals. Text messages from Sophia demanding money. Emails from Mom explaining why they needed to borrow from me again. My grandmother's, well, that clearly left me the necklace Sophia had pawned. I had the pawn receipt she'd carelessly left in my car after asking me to drive her somewhere. I have everything." Christine's voice warmed with what could have been admiration. "Then we'll bury them legally." Voicemails received on Tuesday morning. 17 of them. Dad has demanded that I call him back immediately. Mom cried because I was ripping the family apart. Sophia calls me imaginative names that I will not repeat. Uncle Frank claims Dad just got carried away. I was being dramatic. Family doesn't press charges against family. I erased them all after listening to only a few seconds of each. Christine informed me that they would try to deceive, guilt, and threaten me. She had been right. The restraining orders were filed before 10 a.m. Emergency directives were issued by midday. Hearing is planned for the following week. The police report was submitted simultaneously. An officer arrived to my residence to take my statement and video proof. Officer Jennifer Medina remained expressionless as she watched the tape. When Dad's boot hit my ribs for the second time, something flickered in her eyes. Anger, perhaps. She'd undoubtedly seen worse, but it obviously upset her. "Your father's going to be arrested this afternoon," she remarked, closing her laptop. "Your mother is unlikely to face criminal charges unless the district attorney is concerned about child endangerment, but the restraining order will keep her away from you and your children. How about my sister? She did not physically assault you, but we will include her in the restraining order. She contributed to the hostile environment by making threats." Sophia smirked, her casual cruelty, the way she'd relished seeing Dad hit me. Yes, she deserved to be included. By the evening, Dad had been charged. The mugshot surfaced on a local news website. Our community was small enough that arrests made headlines, particularly when a presumably respectable businessman was charged with criminal assault. People who knew Dad as a church volunteer, Little League supporter, and prominent community person left comments in amazement. No one knew what happened behind closed doors. Nobody ever does until someone finally opens the doors and allows the light in. The preliminary hearing took place within 80 hours, as required by law. Dad's lawyer was pricey, smooth-talking, who protected wealthy people from the repercussions of their conduct. He argued for a modest bail amount, given Dad's community ties, business duties, and absence of prior criminal history. Diana Torres, the prosecutor assigned to the case, responded with video evidence, the severity of the injuries, and the presence of little children throughout the assault. She claimed Dad was a flight risk due to the potential prison time he faced. The judge watched part of the footage. His demeanor remained unchanged, but something had hardened around his eyes. The bail amount was established at $50,000, which was both high enough to be punitive and low enough to be technically doable. Dad was unable to make bail quickly. A $50,000 bail normally required the full amount in cash or a $5,000 bond from a bail bondsman. However, Dad's liquid assets were small. His funds were locked up in business inventory, equipment, and accounts receivable. Mom declined to take out a home equity loan, either because she saw the gravity of his actions, or simply to preserve her own assets in the event of a divorce. He spent 7 days in county jail until Uncle Frank paid the $6,000 bond. People later claimed that those 7 days transformed him in some way. He appeared older and weakened. Good. The civil lawsuit came next. Christine suggested a colleague who specialized in financial harm and emotional suffering situations. Marcus Aldridge was a shark in a high-end suit who smiled when I gave him my documentation. "Your family has been financially abusing you for over a decade," he explained, laying the files across his conference table. "Based on these records, we're looking at approximately $50,000 in stolen funds, forced loans, and property theft. The emotional anguish damages may be much larger, especially given the abuse and devastation to your children." "I don't care about the money," I responded, not realizing how it sounded. "Well, I do, but that isn't the point. The aim is to make them realize they can't do it anymore. Not to me, nor to anyone." Marcus leaned back in his leather chair. They believe that the best revenge is to live a good life. But the second best payback is taking everything they have and making sure everyone knows why. The lawsuit listed everyone involved, including Dad, Mom, Sophia, and even Uncle Frank, for his role in the attack and history of tolerating abuse. We sued for the recovery of all stolen money, plus interest, the value of the pawn necklace, emotional pain, therapy costs for myself and the children, and medical expenditures. Sophia called me a week after the service. I didn't respond. She left a voicemail that I should not have listened to but did anyway. You are actually suing us. What about your own family? Several dollars here and there. You are insane. Do you know how much this will cost, Dad? Legal bills alone could bankrupt him. And for what? Because he punished you. You were always overly theatrical. This is why no one likes you. This is why you have never fitted in. We attempt to include you and help you understand how families work, but you are too self-centered to realize it. You are dead to me. Dead to all of us. I hope you are pleased. I've saved the voicemail. Send it to Marcus. He placed it on the evidence pile. The criminal trial took precedence over the civil case. Dad pled not guilty. Naturally, his counsel portrayed an image of a concerned father attempting to punish an out-of-control daughter, a guy pushed to the limit by disrespect and defiance. Despite the restraining orders, the harassment increased in the weeks before the trial. Christine nicknamed them flying monkeys. My family dispatched somebody to do the dirty labor. Distant cousins I hadn't spoken with in years suddenly had my phone number. Old family friends arrived at my office, worried about the misunderstanding that was pulling the family apart. Angela, my second cousin, cornered me at the grocery store, blocking my way out of the cereal section with her cart. Your father is hurting. You know he has high blood pressure. The stress could kill him. I slid my cart past hers without saying anything. She followed me into the dairy area. He made a mistake. Sure, but don't you think you're going too extreme? Pressing charges, a restraining order. He is your father. He changed your diapers, paid for your braces, and provided you with a roof over your head. The milk in my hand was painfully cold. I focused on that sensation to ground myself. He also kicked me multiple times and smashed my nose in front of my children. We are done here. However, family does not assault one another. Move your cart, or I'll call security. She eventually did, but not before making sure everyone in the dairy area heard her scathing remarks about ungrateful daughters and how young people nowadays lack respect and devotion. Ryan wanted to face her. I stopped him. She isn't worth it. They'll cast me as the aggressor regardless of what I do. Mom evidently set up a phone tree so the flying monkeys reported back. Women from her book club, her church group, and even my former Girl Scout troop leader called with variations on the same script. I was being selfish. I was damaging Dad's life for a moment of rage. Families forgave. What kind of example did I set for my children by refusing to reconcile? Mrs. Patterson, who taught me how to tie knots and kindle campfires 25 years ago, was very insistent. Your mother is beside herself. She rarely eats. She's dropped 15 pounds due to stress. Is this what you want? To destroy your parents? Mrs. Patterson, has my mother told you what happened? A pause. She said there was an argument that got out of hand. He kicked me twice when I was on the floor. Then he grabbed my hair and banged my face onto the floor so hard that my nose broke. My daughter watched the entire thing. She still has nightmares. Longer pause. Well, I'm sure there were circumstances. There is video. It is evidence in a criminal trial. Would you like me to send you the link to the news article? It includes details of his charges. She hung up and did not call again, but others did. The phone tree appeared to be quite extensive. Later on, I began sending everything to voicemail screening. Most texts were variations of the same guilt trip. Some were more threatening. Uncle Frank left a really nice note about how I should drop the accusations, or things would become problematic for me. That one went directly to Officer Medina and my lawyer. Frank received a visit from the police regarding witness intimidation. The menacing calls ceased after that. Work also became complicated. Dad's business partner, a man called Leonard Shaw, whom I met at company picnics as a child, managed to get a direct line to my supervisor. He called, alleging I was making false claims, that the charges were made up, and that I had a history of lying and drug use. All falsehoods, of course, but harmful ones. My boss summoned me in for a meeting, her demeanor perfectly neutral. I need to ask you about some allegations, she told me. My stomach sank. What kind of allegations? Someone claiming to be a family friend says you've been involved in drug use, and that the assault charges against your father are retaliation for him confronting you about it. The courage was almost impressive. As part of my security clearance for this work, I must submit to drug testing on a quarterly basis. Every test has come out clean. Would you like me to request an immediate screening? Her shoulders dropped significantly. That won't be necessary. I told her I didn't believe it, but I had to inquire. For the record, I appreciate that. I hesitated before deciding she deserved the full background. My father is facing felony assault charges because he beat me in front of my children. There's video evidence. His associates are trying to discredit me before trial. She gave a cautious nod. Do you need additional security? I can have your name removed from the front desk list. Make sure nobody can access you without going through me first. The relief was unexpected. It would be helpful if someone believed in me and supported me unconditionally. Thank you. I've been where you are. Different circumstances, but I understand what it takes to walk away from family. You're doing the right thing. The trial preparation was exhausting. The prosecutor, a smart woman called Diana Torres, met with me several times to review testimony. What Dad and Mom had spoken, every aspect of the assault, how Ava had reacted, and where Mason had stood. Defense is going to try to rattle you, Diana said. They'll imply you provoked him. They'll bring up every argument you ever had with your parents, try to paint you as the problem child who drove your father to the breaking point. Let them try. I'd been the victim of endless parental disputes. Nothing they could say would be worse than the reality I'd lived. They'll ask about your marriage, whether Ryan ever hit you, whether you're projecting abuse onto your father. The last one hurts because it's so ridiculous. Ryan had never raised his hand to me. He'd never raised his voice during an argument other than to express his dissatisfaction. Ryan's been nothing but supportive. I know, but they'll try to muddy the waters in any way. Just stay calm, stick to the facts, and remember the jury will see the video. That's the most powerful evidence we have. The continuances pushed the trial back 4 months from its start date. Whitmore's strategy was apparent. Exhaust me. I hoped I'd crack under the extended pressure, making me too fatigued to resist. Each delay meant another month of looking over my shoulder and Ava asking when it was going to be over. Another month of being in legal limbo. The prosecution's case revolved around the 6-minute film. Diana played it for me during one of our preparation sessions, forcing me to see myself get beaten. My clinical detachment snapped around minute 4 as Ava's shrieking reached a climax. I can't watch this again in court, I admitted, wiping away tears. I can't sit there while strangers watch my daughter go through that. You won't have to. The judge will allow Ava and Mason's identities to be protected. We'll refer to them as minor child 1 and minor child 2. Their faces will be blurred in the video shown to the jury. Small mercies. Ava was already concerned about strangers knowing what had happened. The thought of her classmates' parents sitting on a jury, witnessing her trauma, had kept me awake several nights. Charles Whitmore, Dad's lawyer, was exactly as I expected. Silver-haired, expensive suit, with practiced expressions of concern and disappointment. He requested 2 continuances, prolonging the trial by 3 months. Christine indicated that it was a deliberate tactic, anticipating that I would become fatigued, run out of money for legal fees, and eventually give up. But the state was prosecuting. I didn't have to pay for Diana or the trial, so I wasn't giving up. The jury selection took 2 days. Whitmore turned down anyone who had daughters, worked in social services, or acknowledged to experiencing family violence. Diana rejected anyone who made excuses for parental discipline, believed that children owed their parents complete obedience, or appeared receptive to tough love tactics. They ended up with 12 folks who were exhausted and slightly angry at having to be there. Perfect, Diana said. Annoyed jurors paid attention because they wanted to get it over with correctly. Opening statements began on a Wednesday. Whitmore spoke first, his voice silky as seasoned whiskey. This is a case about a family disagreement that escalated unfortunately. Gerald Henderson is not a monster. He's a father who lost his temper during a stressful situation. Yes, he should have handled it better. Yes, he regrets his actions. But felony assault, that's prosecutorial overreach for a domestic dispute that should have been handled within the family. Diana's opening was shorter, crisper. The defense wants you to believe this is a family disagreement. I'm going to show you a video of a grown man beating his daughter while she's on the ground. You'll hear his words. See his actions. Witness her children's terror. Then you'll decide if that's a disagreement or a crime. I testified on day 3. Walking to the stand was weird, like viewing myself from a distance. Whitmore's cross-examination was exactly as severe as Diana had predicted. Ma'am, isn't it true that you've had a tense relationship with your parents for years? We've had disagreements, arguments, fights, and verbal disagreements. And isn't it true that you've repeatedly refused to assist your sister financially despite her needs? I declined to give her money when I couldn't afford it. Yes. But you could afford a $45 toy for your son. The suggestion hung in the air. The selfish daughter chose her boy above her struggling sister. My children come first. I'm their mother. Even when family needs help. When your sister is trying to start a business. My first responsibility is to my children, not to fund my adult sister's ventures. He tried to make me appear cold, calculating, and ungrateful. He inquired about loans my parents had given me over the years, conveniently ignoring the fact that those loans had funded family gatherings they insisted I host or replaced money they had stolen, and I had to reclaim. Diana's redirection was temporary. Did you provoke your father to kick you that day? No. Did you threaten him? No. Did you do anything that would justify him beating you in front of your children? No. The jurors saw the footage. They witnessed a 58-year-old guy kick his daughter twice while she was down. They overheard him threaten her. I saw him pull her hair and slam her face against the floor. They overheard her 9-year-old kid wailing in the corner. Guilty. Felony assault. Sentenced to 18 months in prison, with the possibility of parole after 12 months if good behavior is maintained. Mom fainted in court. Sophia stormed out, yelling about unfairness. Uncle Frank sat silently, perhaps now realizing that his deeds had repercussions. Dad looked at me as they let him go. I met his gaze. Did not smile. Did not gloat. I just gazed back steadily, like I had never been able to do before. The civil suit proceeded while Dad was in county jail awaiting transfer to state prison. Marcus Aldridge filed his case with surgical precision. Each count was supported by documentation I had spent months gathering. Count 1. Theft and conversion of $50,000 over 12 years. Every coerced debt and borrowed sum is never repaid. Every time they plundered my purse or bank account, I kept detailed documents. This contained the $120 and credit card that Dad stole from my office. Petty theft contributed to a much wider pattern. Count 2. Conversion of inherited property. My grandmother's will specifically gave me her opal jewelry, valued at $3,500. Sophia had removed it from my jewelry box and pawned it for $1,000. I had the pawn receipt, the will, and Sophia's text message gloating about the quick cash she had received. Count 3. Emotional discomfort and deliberate infliction of emotional harm. Years of verbal abuse, manipulation, and scapegoating. More difficult to prove but corroborated by text messages, voicemails, and testimony from friends who witnessed it. Count 4 for assault and violence. This one was uncomplicated due to the felony conviction. Dad was legally responsible for my medical bills and agony and suffering. Count 5, fraud and financial exploitation. My childhood college fund, $25,000 set up by my grandfather, inexplicably transferred to Sophia's account the year she graduated from high school. I discovered documents of the transfer while gathering documentation. Dad had been in charge of that account. Sophia's deposition was especially satisfying. Marcus had a knack for asking innocent-sounding queries that set traps every third syllable. Miss Henderson, how many times would you say your sister gave you money over the past decade? Sophia squirmed in her chair and looked at her lawyer. I don't know. A few times, more than 10, maybe more than 20. I didn't keep count. Marcus slid the document across the table. Bank records, text messages, Venmo transactions. I count 37 separate occasions where your sister transferred money to you. Amounts ranging from $50 to $1,500. Total of $23,640. Did she give you this money willingly? She's my sister. Family helps family. Did you ever pay her back? It was quiet. Miss Henderson, did you ever repay any of the money your sister gave you? I was going to when my business took off, but you never did, not yet, no. Did you consider these gifts or loans? The trap asked. If she said gifts, she couldn't say she meant to repay them. If she said loans, she admitted to having defaulted on large debt. Gifts, she finally replied. Family gifts. I see. And when your father assaulted your sister, you were present in the room. He didn't assault her. He was disciplining. Miss Henderson, your father was convicted of felony assault. That's a matter of legal record. Were you present when he kicked your sister twice and slammed her head into the floor? Her attorney argued, but the injury proved permanent. Marcus had established her presence and support for violence against me. Mom's deposition made things worse for them. She cried for the majority of it, claiming she couldn't remember things and that she only wanted to keep the family together. Marcus was forceful but professional, guiding her through years of supporting Dad's behavior, her own verbal abuse, and her habit of prioritizing Sophia over me in every disagreement. Mrs. Henderson, when your daughter was hospitalized with a broken nose and cracked ribs, did you visit her? I don't recall. You don't recall whether you visited your daughter in the hospital after your husband put her there? It was a confusing time. Hospital records show no visitors under your name. Your daughter's medical records show that she identified her spouse as her emergency contact, not you. Why was that? Mom wiped her eyes with a tissue. She was always independent. Didn't want my help. Or perhaps she didn't trust you to help her. The deposition transcripts became part of the civil case file. Marcus utilized them to create a story of systemic abuse, financial exploitation, and my family's complete lack of guilt. Uncle Frank attempted to avoid his deposition totally. He cited employment obligations, health concerns, and prior commitments. Marcus received a court order requiring his appearance. Frank arrived 40 minutes late, visibly drunk and aggressive. This is all he announced before anyone asked the question. Family business should stay in the family. This girl is tearing apart 3 generations over some drama. His lawyer was ready to hide beneath the table. Marcus merely smiled and began recording. By the time Frank departed 2 hours later, he'd acknowledged to seeing Dad slap me at least 5 times before, confirmed that he'd never intervened, and claimed unequivocally that he believed I needed discipline because I was disrespectful and selfish. Perfect, Marcus exclaimed when Roger stumbled out. He just handed us evidence of a pattern of abuse and willing witnesses who did nothing to stop it. The settlement negotiations began 3 weeks before the civil trial was scheduled. Dad's lawyer, a different one than Whitmore, someone who specialized in civil litigation, made the first offer, $20,000, which Marcus laughed at. Counteroffer, $250,000 plus a recorded apology admitting to abuse. My clients refuse to apologize for anything. Then we will see them in court. With a criminal conviction, deposition transcripts, and 12 years of proven financial abuse, I'm convinced a jury will give considerably more than my request. The lawyer paled, knowing Marcus was correct. Civil juries in our county tended to favor abuse victims, especially when children were involved. Second offer, $45,000, no apology. Marcus, $200,000. Take the apology off the table because your clients clearly lack integrity. Third offer, $60,000. Marcus, we've finished negotiating. See you in court. He walked out of the mediation, and I followed, believing his plan, despite the fact that $60,000 was the most money I'd ever seen in one place. They'll come back, he promised me in the parking lot. They can't risk a jury trial. The exposure alone would ruin your father's reputation. Roger's bail is $6,000. He will not pay real money for a lengthy trial. Their support system is cracking. He was correct, and the final offer came the next day. $75,000 paid in full within 30 days, with all parties signing NDAs forbidding any discussion of the case or settlement conditions. No NDA, I told Marcus. I won't be silenced about what they did. He worked it out. They really needed the NDA. Mom, in particular, had been ostracized from her social circles, her book club, and even her church group. When the details of the assault became public, women who had been her friends for decades stopped returning calls. An NDA would allow her to claim that everything was exaggerated and that we had settled quietly because I had been unreasonable. The settlement was reached on a Thursday afternoon in a conference room that reeked of stale coffee and desperation. Marcus insisted on dropping the NDA requirement or writing a trial in which even more humiliating details would be revealed during testimony. Dad, who was still in prison, was represented by his lawyer. Mom sat straight in her chair, refusing to look at me. Natalie scowled daggers the entire time. I signed the paperwork with steady hands. $75,000 was paid within 30 days. They had to liquidate virtually everything to make it happen. Dad's business was being sold to his former partner, Leonard Shaw, for a fraction of its value. Mom had eventually agreed to a home equity loan, and Natalie had evidently borrowed from many credit cards. Their eagerness to avoid litigation and public testimony had cost them dearly. "This isn't over," Natalie whispered as we walked away. "You think you've won, but you've just made enemies for life." "I've had enemies my whole life," I said quietly. "They were just disguised as family. At least now I know the truth." The money arrived in my account 28 days later, 2 days before the deadline, and I immediately paid off our mortgage, which was worth $40,000. The freedom of owning our home outright, of knowing my family couldn't use housing insecurity against me, was worth more than any amount of money. The second payment went to therapy bills I'd accumulated for myself and the kids, totaling nearly $15,000 for intensive treatment, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, and family counseling sessions. The third portion went into college funds for Ava and Mason, $20,000 split between them, unlike the fund my grandfather had set up for me. The remainder paid for tuition for me to finally finish my degree, which I dropped out of when the family needed me to work and contribute money to Natalie's education instead. I enrolled for the spring semester, 10 years after my last classroom experience. Sophia's salon failed 6 months later. Without regular cash infusions from me, and without Mom and Dad's support now that their own finances were in shambles, she couldn't make rent. The business loan she'd taken out, which she'd pressed me to co-sign for years ago but I'd finally refused, came due. She'd been making minimum payments, barely surviving. The home where I grew up, where Dad had built his reputation as a family man and pillar of the community, sold for less than market value, and most of her equipment was repossessed. She moved back in with Mom, who had been forced to sell the house to pay the settlement and was now living in a 2-bedroom apartment across town. After the settlement, Uncle Frank stopped taking Dad's calls. He only tolerated abuse when it didn't cost him anything. Life moved on. Ava began therapy and gradually began sleeping through the night without nightmares. Mason stopped flinching when men raised their voices. Ryan and I renewed our vows in a small ceremony with only our friends, the family we'd chosen rather than the one we'd been born into, and I got a promotion at work. It turns out that when you're not constantly stressed about managing abusive family members, fielding calls, demanding money, or recovering from the most recent dramatic confrontation, you actually have energy to focus on your career. My supervisor commented, "I appear different recently, more confident, more present." "I set some boundaries," I informed her. "It made a difference." Most likely the understatement of the decade. After 14 months, Dad was released and he was living with Mom in her apartment, working part-time at a warehouse because his business had failed. Because of his felony conviction, he was barred from most professional opportunities, and he never contacted me. The restraining order was now permanent, and I believe he realized I meant what I said. Sophia attempted to contact him once, 3 years after everything had happened, through a letter rather than a phone call or email, which would have violated the restraining order, and she was finally wise enough to be cautious. The letter was filled with half apologies and justifications. I never expected it to go this far. I never wanted Dad to go to jail. I was just supporting him because that's what families do. Maybe we both made mistakes. Maybe we could try to repair this relationship if you're willing to forgive. I burned the letter in the fireplace. Ryan watched without comment, then handed me a glass of wine. "Do you feel better?" he asked. "We're getting there. Some could claim I went too far. That family deserves more opportunities, grace and forgiveness. Those folks have not been kicked in the ribs by their father while their children were watching. Those folks have not spent decades as an emotional and financial punching bag for those who were supposed to love and protect them. I don't regret the lawsuits, the charges, the restraining orders. I don't regret pursuing every legal option available to me. They harmed me for years, stole from me, used me, and eventually escalated to physical violence in front of my children. The downfall I promised myself that night, standing slowly with blood running down my face, I delivered methodically, legally, and completely. Ava occasionally asks if she'll ever see her grandparents again, and I tell her the truth. Probably not. She appears relieved rather than sad. Mason scarcely remembers them now, which may be for the best. We've constructed a new life, lighter, quieter, and filled with people who treat us with respect and care. Ryan's parents, who are horrified by what my family did, go out of their way to show my kids what healthy grandparenting looks like. I still have nightmares about that day, the impact of Dad's boot, the sound of my nose breaking, Ava screams, but they are less frequent now, fading like old scars. Last week, I bought Mason a new action figure. The identical one Dad threw away, but we had to get it online because it is no longer available in stores. Mason looked at it for a long time before gently removing it from the package. "Can I play with it?" he asked. "Of course. That is what toys are for," he said, smiling. Ryan sat beside me, his hand resting on mine, and he began telling elaborate stories about space battles and heroic rescues. Ava joined in, adding her own characters to the story. I watched them play, these resilient little humans who'd witnessed something no child should see and were somehow finding their way back to joy and safety. "You did good," he replied gently, going away, protecting them and carrying through. A lot of people couldn't do that. Maybe he was correct. Or perhaps I just reached a point where the agony of staying was greater than the anguish of leaving, where protecting my children was more important than preserving a mask of family harmony. Regardless, I was free. They were free. And if it made me the villain in my family's story, the ungrateful daughter, the vindictive sister, the destroyer of family peace, I would joyfully wear that name. It's better to be the villain in someone else's story than the victim in your own.